My name is David McBride, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the 1930s, specifically childhood. When most people think of the 1930s, the first thing that comes to their mind is the Great Depression. The person I interviewed was my grandpa, Donald J. Edwards. I talked to him about what it was like to grow up during this time period. Today I'm going to share with you various information about the childhood activities such as schooling and some of the pop culture during that time period. There are many activities that children did to keep themselves busy during their childhood, and the first activity that I'm going to talk about is school. According to librarythinkquest.org, elementary school typically consisted of grades K through 6th grade. School days typically lasted from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Lunches were different because students were able to go to and from school freely, and then after they were done eating lunch at home, they could come back and resume their classes. Typical subjects taught in elementary school were math, English, spelling, art, geography, and sewing, believe it or not. Today, the main subjects taught in elementary school are math and writing to help the students do well on the standardized tests, but back then there were no standardized tests. My grandpa said that he remembers that he didn't spend a lot of time on his studies. He told me even though he didn't study a lot, he still did well enough in school to always be on the honor roll. There are several activities at school that the children participated in to stay busy. My grandpa remembers playing games on the playground such as softball and kickball, and at other schools children played on the swings or the slides. Girls were known for playing hopscotch or jumping rope, and this is stated on library.thinkquest.org. The schooling sounds nice, but the Depression affected children in many different ways. The Great Depression was a massive factor in some children not being able to attend school. Library.thinkquest.org states that not every child attended school. The website goes on to say that the children that were fortunate enough not to help their parents were able to attend school, but this left some children without schooling because they had to stay home and help their family earn money. My grandpa does not recall feeling the effects of the Depression on his family. In fact, he doesn't even remember it going on at all. His father was a salesman for a company that sold coal mining equipment in Scranton. And Scranton was known as a coal mining town at the time, and since the industry was depression-proof at that time and place, his father did fairly well for himself and his family. He didn't consider his family to come from money, but his father was good at his job, and his family managed their money well enough to do okay. And his mother didn't even have to start working until he was 18 years old. My grandpa did recall that his close group of friends were able to attend school without much of a problem. He knew of several kids his age that were not able to attend school because they were helping their family earn money. Now, moving away from schooling and into some of the pop culture of the 1930s, the art and entertainment of this time period helped to lift the spirits of the people in America during the Great Depression. It don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. kclibrary.lonestar.edu says that the title of this Duke Ellington song sums up the music interests of many people during the 1930s. People wanted to hear music played by the big bands of Benny Goodman, Duke Ellington, and Tommy Dorsey. There are also an interest in American musicals. George Gershwin, probably the most famous during that time period, wrote "Strike Up the Band, Girl Crazy, End of Thee I Sing." Cole Porter produced works such as Anything Goes and Red Hot and Blue. These musicals helped people to forget about the hardships of the Great Depression and be relaxed and entertained, even if it was just for a short time. Board games were also a popular activity to be played by the children of the family. By the mid-1930s, Monopoly became a popular board game, and my grandpa enjoyed playing Monopoly with his friends. Sorry was another game that was introduced in the 1930s, and both of these games are still played widely throughout our country today by many American families. The art and architecture were also a large part of the 1930s. Like everything during the 1930s, there was a theme of the Great Depression in the artwork that was created during this time period. The most famous of this artwork was Grant Woods' American Gothic that depicted the male farmer with a pitchfork and his spouse next to him. My grandpa does actually remember having a a copy of this in his house, and he still has it in his basement today. Some of our country's most famous skyscrapers were built during the Great Depression. According to kclibrary.lonestar.edu, the Empire State Building, the Chrysler Building, and the Rockefeller Center were all completed during the 1930s. Frank Lloyd Wright designed Falling Water, which is widely considered one of the best all-time works of American architecture, because that little waterfall there flows right through the house. The pop culture and art of the 1930s made the Great Depression a little bit easier on the children and the families of that time period. To recap some of the things I talked about today, the schooling of the 1930s was much different than it is today. Some children were not even able to attend school because of the hardships of the Great Depression. And the art and entertainment of the 1930s helped ease the pain of the Depression for some American families. I hope you learned a thing or two about childhood and pop culture of the 1930s. Thank you.